All right, so can you continue?
Yeah. You have heard more than one definition of Freemasonry. The truest and the most significant you have yet to hear, it is taught to the entered apprentice, the fellow craft, and the master, and it is taught in every degree through which you have advanced to it is. It is a definition of what Freemasonry is, of what its purposes and its very essence and spirit are. And it has for every one of us the forces and sensitivity of a divine law, and impose on every one of us a solemn obligations. It is symbolized and taught to the apprentice as well as to you by the compass and the square, upon which, as well as upon the book of your religion and the book of law of the Scottish Freemasonry, you have taken so many obligations. As a knight, you have been taught by the swords, the symbols of honor and duty, on which you have taken your vows. It was taught you by the balance, the symbol of all equilibrium, and by the cross, the symbol of devoutness and self-sacrifice, and all that these teach and contain is taught and contained for enter apprentice, knight, and prince alike, by the compass and the square. For the apprentice, the points of the compass are beneath the square. For the fellow craft, one is above and one beneath. For the masters, both are dominant and have rule, control, and empire over the symbol of the early and the material. Freemasonry is the subjugation of the human that is in man by the divine, the conquest of the appetites and passions by the moral sense and the reason, a continual effort, struggle, and welfare of the spiritual against the material and sensual. That victory, when it has been achieved and secured, and the conqueror may rest upon his shield and wear the well-earned laurel, is the true only empire.
Okay, the truly holy empire of reason, okay? So let me explain to you the symbolism of Freemasonry. This is the compass. Okay, what does the compass do? The compass sets the boundaries. It rules, right? This is a square, okay? The square limits, okay? So the idea is that when you first join Freemasonry, you have to focus on the square, which is your own spiritual alchemy, okay? To discipline yourself, to focus yourself, to learn how to be ruled, okay, by the compass. Then you reach a point where you must rule yourself. So you must teach others how to be disciplined, how to be focused. And then you reach a point when you combine the square and the compass, which is you lead the Freemasons to control the whole world, to create the holy empire of reason. All right? So according to different ranks, you see the symbol in a different way. All right, the G, what does the G stand for? Well, there are three different interpretations, okay? It stands for geometry, of course, because of the square and the compass. It stands for God, or Gnosticism, or Grand Architect, okay? So what the Freemasons believe is that there is a God, but he created this world for us to perfect by ourselves, then God left us. So he's the architect, but that means that we have a responsibility to renovate and perfect the world that we live in, okay? But there's also people who believe that the G stands for the generative principle, okay? So there's male and there's female. The female is a productive principle, the thing that gives birth. The male is a generative principle, the thing that energizes the female. Okay? So what's interesting is that if you put all this together, you put generative principle, generate, plus geometry, what you get is God. Okay? And what does generative and geometry equal? It equals AI, artificial intelligence. So at the very beginning of Freemasonry, there was an impetus, a desire among them to prove that they could be God by creating life itself. All right? In the beginning, they called this golems. But now, if you think about it, that's why they want to create AI. To prove that they can be God themselves. Once you create AI, then you perfect the world. Okay? So that is Freemasonry. And you can see how it gives rise now to artificial intelligence. I'm not saying that they planned for artificial intelligence, What I'm saying is that the people in charge now of artificial intelligence, including people like Sam Altman, Peter Thiel, Larry Ellison, Elon Musk, they can now go back to this tradition and basically appropriate this tradition in order to justify their AI surveillance state. All right? Okay, so now let's move on. This is Zbigniew Brzezinski, and he was National Security Advisor to Jimmy Carter, okay, who was President of the United States, and he's a founder of something called the Trilateral Commission, which basically tries to implement American grand strategy in the world. And this was funded by David Rockefeller, who obviously was one of the wealthiest, most powerful Americans to ever live. So this is a very powerful individual. And we're going to read certain writings from his book, Between Two Ages. And when we read it, you'll see how similar it is to Albert Pike. Now, I don't think that Zbigniew Brzezinski read Albert Pike, and he probably himself is probably not a Freemason. But again, you don't have to read Albert Pike. You don't have to be a Freemason to think like them. These are all people obsessed with power, control, and order. And they're going to look for elements of different religions in order to justify their pursuit of power, order, and control, okay? So this is from the book Between Two Ages. Can you read, Alan?
The emergence of a large dominant party alongside the more narrowly focuses and more intensively doctrinal groupings on the right and the left could accelerate the trend towards such technological managerialism. Such a large dominant party would combine American society's quest for stability with its historical affinity for innovation, relying on scientific growth to produce the means for dealing with social ills. It would tap the nation's intellectual talent for broad target planning and exploit the existence of doctrinal groups by using them as social barometers and as sources of novel ideas. Persisting social crisis, the emergence of a charismatic personality, and the exploitations of mass media to obtain public confidence would be the stepping stones in the piecemeal transformations of the United States into a highly controlled society. In different ways, both the doctrinarian and the conservative might find the temptations inherent in the new techniques of social control too difficult to resist. The inclinations of the doctrinal left to legitimize means by ends could lead them to justify more social control on the ground that it serves progress. The conservatives, preoccupied with public order and fascinated by modern gadgetry, would be tempted to use a new technique as a response to unrest, since they would fail to recognize that social control is not the only way to deal with rapid social change.
So this book is written about 1970s, okay? This is like 40, 50 years ago. What's amazing about this paragraph is that it perfectly describes America today. This is not just a prophecy, it's almost like a plan, okay? So let me explain what he's saying. He's saying that democracy is problematic. Why? Because it always leads to polarization. You're always going to have different factions within this democracy who are going to fight each other. Eventually, you're going to reach a point where they actually refuse to get along. That's what's happening in America today between the left and the right, between the Democrats and the Republicans, okay? And he's saying this is going to create a series of crises, social crisis. And the solution, he believes, is a technocracy, all right? So basically, a bureaucracy in Washington, D.C. run by engineers who use artificial intelligence, who use data and statistics in order to better govern society, and who are better able to use this social polarization in order to better manage society, okay? And this is a really, really interesting sentence. Persisting social crises, okay? So what's happening in America right now is the divide between the left and right. The emergence of a charismatic personality. Who's that person? Charismatic personality? Donald Trump, guys. And the exploitation of mass media, okay? So just basically social media in order to indoctrinate and brainwash you. To obtain public confidence would be the stepping stones in the piecemeal transformation of the United States into a highly controlled society, a AI surveillance state. So what he's saying is this. Eventually you'll reach a point where the divide will be so vast, the economy will be in such trouble, the people will be so angry that they will demand a Napoleon or Julius Caesar to arise to lead them into a dictatorship. And this could be a good thing because this could create a technocracy which would be better able to govern society, okay? All right? So this is a continuation of the Freemason project of trying to create order out of chaos. All right? And what he's saying is this. It will be the conservatives, the Republicans, who will win out in the Civil War because they're the ones who are preoccupied with public order and gadgetry, okay? They are the ones who will want the AI surveillance state. Okay? Once you have the AI surveillance state, you now have the technocracy. And the world will be perfect. All right? Does it make sense to you guys, what he's saying here? This is an amazing paragraph written 40, 50 years ago. So I'm not saying he's a Freemason. I'm not saying he's part of secret society, but he sure thinks like a Freemason. All right, let's continue. All right, can you continue?
Yeah. It was a frontier tradition that stirred the American imagination, created a society of movement and growth, and gave American its integrative myth. Scientific explorations, including exploration of space, has become the functional equivalent of Americans' frontier tradition, and such endeavor is immediately relevant to the educational and scientific attainment of the country.
Okay, stop. Okay, can you just read the last paragraph? To many Americans.
To many Americans, contemporary liberalism offers neither principles nor progress. The crisis of American liberalism is hence both a crisis of confidence and of historical relevance.
Okay, so what he's saying here is that democracy was a historical accident. It was good for America before, but in the future, liberalism will probably be a bad thing, okay, because it's too divisive. Okay? So what's the solution then? Well, this is the solution. Can you read, please?
Yeah. That is why...
Can you read slower, please, Alan, okay? You don't have to rush.
Yeah.
Okay, just read slower. Keep on going.
That is why Marxism represents a further virtual and creative stage in the maturing of man's universal vision. Marxism is simultaneously a victory of the external, active man over the inner, passive man, and a victory of reason over belief. It stresses man's capacity to shape his material destiny. Finite.
Okay, stop. Okay, all right. So this is an amazing passage, okay? This is the guy who was National Security Advisor to Jimmy Carter. At this time, this is the height of the Cold War. America is fighting a war with the Soviet Union. And the National Security Advisor of the United States to Jimmy Carter says that democracy is bad, Marxism is good. Okay? Marxism is good. Why? Because it is the end point of history. The French Revolution was about promoting reason over emotion. Marxism is a natural progression of the French Revolution. Marxism is what promises a victory of reason over emotion. Okay? So what is the AI surveillance state? Ultimately, it is techno-Marxism. Okay? That's what they want. They want communism. National Security Advisor to Jimmy Carter, one of the most powerful Americans in the world, want Marxism. Why? Because Marxism, communism, is the implementation of the ideas of Freemasonry in our world. All right? Okay. Is this clear, guys? All right.
Mr. Jiang.
Yes?
So, what is the techno-Marxism?
Yeah, I'm explaining, okay? All right, so this is Larry Ellison. And Larry Ellison probably doesn't read books. Okay, he's probably never read Albert Pike. He's probably never read Zbigniew Brzezinski, okay? But he's one of the most powerful men in America because he founded a company called Oracle. Oracle. All right? And this is him with Donald Trump announcing something called Operation Stargate. So they're going to build data centers all around the United States in order to create their AI surveillance state. Now, Larry Ellison is one of the most powerful men in the world, but his background is very, very interesting. He founded a company, Oracle. At that time it was called RSI. This is from a biography of Larry Ellison called The Difference Between God and Larry Ellison, okay? And he talks about how in the first 5 years, his company was terrible. They were a database company designed to collect data and then organize this data in a way that was useful to companies and to governments, okay? But they were so bad that if you put data into this computer, they lost all the data. They were just incompetent. But who were their clients? It's the CIA and the Navy, who had unlimited money. Okay? So the company is incompetent, destroys data, but the government kept on supporting them. Okay? Can you read, Alan?
The funny thing was, the early customers did not really mind losing money or data. Even though RSI never really delivered what the CIA wanted, the agency was not upset. Engineer Kirk Bradley remembered a CIA employee telling him, "We bought the things knowing damn well it wasn't going to work. We're buying an idea." Add or it tape du jour did not satisfy the Navy either. But it did not matter. We were buying a Wright flyer with the expectations that we would probably have an airline in a few years, the Navy John Scale said. The Navy understood that Oracle might crash and burn at any time, yet it was exciting to try to make it fly, Scale said, with a hint of irony.
This is really confusing, okay? The CIA, the Navy, you're going to hire a company because the company's going to do it cheaper and faster and more effectively than you can do it, right? But what happened with Oracle is that it cost them a lot of money, they weren't getting what they wanted, and they had to put their own resources to create Oracle. They had to help Oracle come into being. So Oracle and Larry Ellison are both creations of the CIA and the Navy. Why would they do that? Okay? That's a very curious question. I don't know the answer to this. It might be because Larry Ellison is just a really charismatic guy. It may be because he has relatives who work for the CIA. It may be because he got really lucky. Who knows? But this is a very curious fact about how these companies like Oracle started. All right? We're also going to talk about this guy, Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel is probably one of the most powerful men in America right now. I think he's actually much more powerful than Elon Musk. Why? Because in 2016, he recognized the potential in Donald Trump, and he supported Donald Trump's campaign. He also saw the potential in J.D. Vance, and he supported J.D. Vance's venture capital career, as well as his Senate race, and then he promoted J.D. Vance as the VP for Donald Trump, okay? And when you read Peter Thiel, even though he's an entrepreneur, he actually reads like a Freemason. It's really, really strange. Okay, so this is from his book, From 0 to 1, okay? And he's talking about how to build a great company. And what he tells you is this: if you want to build a great company to compete against other companies, you're an idiot. Competition is for losers. Capitalism is for losers. What you want is monopoly. What you want is communism. What you want is to dominate, okay? And that means you need a secret in order to monetize. Okay, can you read, Alan? Can you read slowly, please?
Yeah. There are two kinds of secrets: secrets of nature and secrets about people. Natural secrets exist all around us. To find them, one must study some undiscovered aspects of the physical world. Secrets about people are different. There are things that people don't know about themselves or think they hide because they don't want others to know. So when thinking about what kinds of company to build, there are two distinct questions to ask. What secrets is nature not telling you? What secrets are people not telling you? If you find a secret, you'll face a choice. Some are more dangerous than others. As for tells Wagner, the few who know what might be learned, foolish enough to put their whole heart on snow, and reveal their feelings to the crowd below, mankind had always crucified and burned. Unless you have perfectly conventional beliefs, it is rarely a good idea to tell everybody everything that you know. So what do you tell? Whoever you need to, and no more. In practice, there's always a golden means between telling nobody and telling everybody, and that's a company. The best entrepreneurs know this. Every great business is built around the secret that's hidden from the outside. A great company is a conspiracy of change the world. When you share your secret, the recipient becomes a fellow conspirator.
How do you build a great company? You create a secret society. All right? And what's a secret society? You access the occult. Okay? If you really want to make a lot of money, guys, don't spend your time programming and looking for the best technology. Don't do that. That's a waste of time. Look at the occult. Figure out the secrets of humanity. Figure out the secrets of the occult and build your company around that idea, and you will come to dominate. All right? So he's very clear about this, okay? What he's saying is that if you want to start a company, start a religion first, man. Okay, can you read, Alan? Yeah.
The best startups might be considered slightly less extreme kinds of cults. The biggest difference is that cults tend to be fanatically wrong about something important. People at a successful startup are fanatically right about something those outside it have missed. You're not going to learn those kinds of secrets from consultants, and you don't need to worry if your company doesn't make sense to conventional professionals. Better to be called a cult or even a mafia.
Okay, all right, okay, does it make sense, okay? He's saying it literally now. Start a religion or start a mafia, it doesn't matter, okay? Now, Peter Thiel is important because he is a mentor to two individuals, Mark Zuckerberg as well as Sam Altman. Remember from last week, we read Karen Howell's book, Empire of AI, where Sam Altman says that the most successful founders do not set out to create companies. They are on a mission to create something closer to a religion. All right? So he's basically using the words of his mentor, Peter Thiel. This is also what Sam Altman said. People talk about how much energy it takes to train an AI model, but it also takes a lot of energy to train a human. It takes like 20 years of life and all the food you eat during that time before you get smart. Okay? So these people literally see no difference between an AI and a human. You're just energy to be exploited. Okay? You're just an energy that I need to turn into a cube in order to create my holy temple of reason. All right? And this is another friend of Peter Thiel's called Alexander Karp, and together they founded a company called Palantir. What is Palantir? Palantir is the ultimate AI surveillance company. Okay? So Oracle creates databases of information. Everything about you is in an Oracle database. Palantir then takes this information and predicts how you will behave. Okay? And this is the Palantir manifesto called the Technological Republic. They're not Freemasons, but they might as well be Freemasons, okay? So this is the manifesto, and it basically says that we need to create a technocracy. That's all it's saying. We're going to create a technocracy, an AI surveillance state, and that's a good thing, all right? All right, and I will leave you with this. Peter Thiel, for the past few years, has been giving speeches around the world talking about the Antichrist. Okay, what's the Antichrist? How much does an Antichrist rise to power? By playing on our fears of technology and seducing us into decadence with the Antichrist's slogan, peace and safety. The Antichrist is anyone and everyone who opposes the AI surveillance state. Okay? So you might think, no, wait, isn't it more logically to believe that the AI surveillance state is the Antichrist? No! Peter Thiel said, no, it's the opposite, guys. It's you oppose the AI surveillance state, then you're the Antichrist. And the Antichrist is evil. Therefore, we have to destroy these people. Okay? Whoever prevents us from building the AI surveillance state is pure evil. And once you understand this, then we will achieve our holy empire of reason. Okay? Any questions, guys?
So can we understand the Freemasonry, which is the kingdom of reason, as a kind of brainwash?
Okay. Freemasonry is a group of people who practice certain things. And at the very heart of Freemasonry is an eschatological vision of trying to achieve the end of the world, which is a one world government based in Jerusalem, and where everyone obeys this government. And if you obey, then the world is perfect. Okay, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, and so how do you get people to obey? AI, right? You don't want to work out, you don't want to study, you don't want to work and pay taxes? Well, let's have an AI in your head, a particle chip in your head that tells you, no, Vincent, you should pay your taxes. No, Vincent, you shouldn't drive drunk. Okay? And that's the idea. It's about alchemy, human perfection, trying to turn you into an obedient robot that can be programmed. Okay? Does that make sense? But it's a good thing, because once we do that, there'll be peace, there'll be happiness, there'll be safety. It's a good thing. Yeah?
But if that was a good thing, like what matters about human subjectivity if the AI fully controls you?
Human subjectivity is bad because it leads to sin, it leads to errors, it leads to confusion. You understand? If we all think alike, the world is not perfect. We now achieve a common brotherhood of humanity. We now achieve God. If everyone thinks alike. And that's what AI can do for us. Any more questions? Okay, so Putin is coming to Beijing tonight. So on Thursday, we'll discuss Putin.